Pain, loss, failure, rejection, fear, disappointment. These are not strangers. They live in all of us quietly in the background, or sometimes loudly in our chest. You felt them. Maybe today, maybe every day. And maybe you've asked, why? Do I suffer so much? Why can't I stop thinking about what went wrong? Why does this hurt so deeply when I've tried so hard to move on? You're not broken. You're just human. And even the most enlightened human, the Buddha himself, started with the same question. He didn't just accept life's pain. He questioned it deeply. And in his questioning, he uncovered something that most people still haven't realized. Life includes pain, but suffering? Suffering is a choice, a habit, a misunderstanding. You see, we often confuse the two. We think suffering is what happens when someone leaves us, when we fail, when we lose something we love. But that's not suffering. That's pain. Suffering is what happens next. Suffering is the story we create around the pain. It's the second wound. The Buddha explained this through a powerful image. Imagine walking through a forest. Suddenly, an arrow strikes you in the side. That's pain, sharp, real, undeniable. But before you can even breathe, another arrow hits you. This one wasn't shot by anyone else. You shot it with your thoughts. Why me? This isn't fair. I don't deserve this. I'll never be okay again. That second arrow, that's suffering. And most of us are walking around with hundreds of them. The Buddha didn't just want us to survive pain. He wanted us to understand it, and more importantly, to stop multiplying it. He mapped out the way. Through it. Not in a vague, spiritual way, but in a clear, step-by-step path. It began with a simple but powerful truth. Life is suffering. Not all the time, but inevitably. Nothing lasts. Everything changes, and what we love will eventually lose. That's hard. But it's not meant to hurt you, it's meant to wake you up. Suffering is not a punishment. It's a signal. It tells you where you're clinging, where you're holding on too tightly. That's why the Buddha didn't stop at one truth. He offered four. The four noble truths, not just philosophical ideas, but a system to liberate your mind. The first, there, is suffering. Dukkha. It's not a flaw in life. It's part of it. Loss, change, grief, impermanence. These are built into the structure of the world. The second, suffering has a cause. And that cause is craving, clinging, desire, and a refusal to let go. We want things to stay the same. We want to control outcomes. We want to possess what is, by nature, impermanent. We suffer not because things are painful, but because we can't accept that they are changing. You crave love and suffer when it slips away. You crave stability and suffer when life shakes. You crave a perfect self and suffer when you fail. The tighter you cling, the more you bleed. Like trying to hold water in a closed fist, the more pressure you apply, the faster it slips away. But here's the secret most people never discover. Suffering can end. That's the third truth, and it's the most radical of all. You don't have to live like this. You don't have to stay in the mental prison of what if, why me, and I wish it were different. It's not about becoming numb. It's about becoming clear. It's not about giving up. It's about letting go. Imagine a fire. If you stop feeding it wood, it dies down. In the same way, if you stop feeding your suffering with thoughts, expectations, and stories, it fades. That's what Buddha saw. That's what he lived. And so he gave us the fourth truth, the path. Not a magical formula, not a list of beliefs, but a way of living, a practice. The Noble Eightfold Path. It starts with the mind, with how you see the world. It flows into action, how you speak, how you live, how you work. And it returns to the mind mindfulness, focus, Discipline. This path is not for monks alone. It's for anyone who wants peace. It's for anyone who's tired of suffering. You don't need to move to a monastery. You need to look at your own mind, your own thoughts, your habits, your grip on things that are already gone, and slowly, gently begin to lose that grip. There's a story that Buddha told through life itself. A mother, Kisagautam, came to him in anguish. Her child had died. She begged the Buddha to bring him back. He said he would, but only if she could find a mustard seed from a household untouched by death. She searched every home, but everywhere she went there was grief, sickness, loss, suffering. She returned to the Buddha not with the seed, but with understanding. She realized she was not alone, that death had touched every home, that clinging to the impossible only deepened her pain. In that realization, she let go, and in letting go, she found peace. This is the path. Not denial, not coldness, but clarity. Seeing things as they are and no longer insisting they be different. Suffering ends not when the world changes, but when our relationship to the world does. And that journey has already begun. Most people want change, but very few want to change themselves. We ask for peace, but we cling to chaos. We ask for freedom, but we hold on to everything that binds us. Buddha didn't offer peace as a gift. He offered it as a path, a way of living, thinking, breathing, and seeing. That path begins with one thing: right view, the ability to see things as they truly are, not as we want them to be, not as we fear they might be, but as they are right now. This alone is revolutionary, because most of our suffering begins not in reality, but in resistance to it. You want someone to stay, but they leave. You want life to be fair, but it isn't. You want to win, but you fail. The pain is real. But suffering comes when we insist this should not be happening. Buddha taught, the truth is not your enemy. Your attachment to how things should be, that's the cause of your pain. Right view means dropping the illusion. It means stepping back and asking, what is actually happening right now? Not what I wish, not what I fear, but what is. This is the first step on the Noble Eightfold Path. It's not about blind faith. It's about radical clarity. Once you see clearly, the next step becomes obvious. Right intention. Your intentions shape your life. Every action, every word, every silence grows from them. What are your intentions rooted in? Fear? Control? Desire? Ego? Or are they grounded in compassion? Stillness? Detachment? Intention is not just what you want, it's why you want it. If you crave love to escape loneliness, it becomes a chain. But if you love freely without needing, it becomes freedom. With right view and right intention, you begin to shift your inner world. And when the inner shifts, the outer begins to follow. Next comes right speech, and this is more powerful than most people realize. Words are not just sounds, they're seeds. Every word you speak plants something in others and in yourself. Buddha taught that right speech is truthful, kind, necessary, timely. Most of us speak to be heard, to be liked, to be right. But rarely do we speak to heal, to understand, or to uplift. Every insult, every complaint, every lie, it feeds suffering. But every word of patience, truth, and love, it waters peace. Silence, too, can be a form of right speech. Sometimes, saying nothing is the most compassionate thing you can do. Then comes right action, what you do when no one is watching. Not just moral behavior, but conscious behavior. How do you treat people when there's nothing to gain? How do you respond when your pride is wounded? How do you behave when the world is unfair? Right action is not about being perfect. It's about being aware. It's realizing that every action leaves an imprint not just on others, but on your own soul. If your actions are rooted in greed, hatred, or ignorance, they will return to you as suffering. But if they're rooted in mindfulness, generosity, and compassion, they become steps toward peace. Next is right livelihood, the way you earn your living. Buddha taught that your work should not cause harm to others or to yourself. If your career feeds dishonesty, addiction, exploitation, or violence, it will feed your inner turmoil too. You may gain wealth, but you'll lose something deeper. But if your work uplifts, serves, creates, heals, then it becomes part of your practice. Even the most ordinary job can be sacred, if done with mindfulness and love. After that comes right effort, and this is where many people fall. We want peace, but we don't work for it. We want freedom, but we don't train the mind. We want wisdom, but we spend hours feeding ourselves distraction. Right effort doesn't mean pushing yourself constantly. It means putting your energy where it matters, nourishing good thoughts, cutting off harmful ones, protecting the seeds of stillness before they're trampled by noise. Like tending a garden, peace doesn't grow by chance. It grows by attention. Then, we reach right mindfulness, the art of being present. Most suffering happens in a place that doesn't exist, the past or the future. We replay what went wrong. We rehearse what could go wrong. Meanwhile, the present moment, the only thing that's really is ignored. Mindful NESS brings you back to the breath, to your body, to this step, this sip, this sunrise. To now. The more time you spend in the present, the less room suffering has to grow. Finally, there is right concentration, deep focus, deep stillness. Not the focus of chasing goals, but the focus of surrender, of sitting quietly with your mind, watching its waves without drowning in them. When you concentrate deeply, the ego loses its grip. You realize that your thoughts are not who you are, that you can observe your pain without becoming it. And in that space, that still, sacred space, suffering begins to fall apart. The Eightfold Path is not a checklist. It's a circle. Each part supports the others. It's not a ladder to climb. It's a way to walk every day, every breath. And as you walk it, something incredible happens. The things that used to destroy you lose their power. The people who hurt you no longer define you. The fears that controlled you begin to dissolve, not because the world changes, but because you do. You stop clinging. You stop resisting. You stop fighting what is. And in that surrender, you find peace. True peace. The kind that doesn't depend on circumstances. The kind that survives loss, change, failure, and even death. Because it's not built on control. It's built on understanding. And understanding is the beginning of freedom. There's a moment on the spiritual path when everything feels quiet. Not because the world has changed, but because something inside you has stopped resisting. You stop arguing with reality. You stop trying to force things to go your way. And for the first time, you just let it be. That moment is not dramatic. It's not flashy. It's gentle, subtle, but deeply powerful. That's the essence of what the Buddha meant by liberation. True freedom isn't the ability to control everything. It's the ability to remain peaceful when you can't. That's what most people miss. They think the goal is to eliminate pain. But Buddha never promised a life without pain. He promised a mind that doesn't turn pain into endless suffering. It's the mind that's healed, not the world. So how does that healing begin? Not through punishment, not through forcing yourself to be positive. It begins with acceptance. Not passive acceptance, but conscious, empowered acceptance. You accept that you will grow old. You accept that people will come and go. You accept that your thoughts lie, that your fears exaggerate, that your ego distorts. You stop needing things to go a certain way to feel okay. This is where suffering starts to dissolve. Because suffering feeds on resistance. It lives in the gap between what you expect and what actually is. The wider the gap, the more you suffer. You expected them to stay, but they left. You expected to succeed, but you failed. You expected life to be fair, but it WSN single quotes to. Now imagine releasing the expectations. Imagine meeting life as it is, moment to moment. That's presence. That's mindfulness. That's the heart of Buddhist practice. Not believing in some God, not memorizing scriptures, not wearing robes, but watching the mind, moment by moment, and refusing to be its slave. There's a beautiful metaphor in the teachings. Mind is like a wild elephant. If you let it roam free, it will destroy everything. But if you train it with patience, it becomes your most powerful ally. Most people live as prisoners of their minds. They think whatever thought appears must be true. They feel whatever emotion arises must be obeyed. But Buddha taught, observe your thoughts, don't become them. Watch your emotions, don't drown in them. They are like clouds, passing, shifting. You are the sky, and the more you realize this, the freer you become. You may still feel anger, but you don't lash out. You may still feel fear, but you don't freeze. You may still feel pain, but you don't suffer, because you've stopped adding the second arrow. That's what real mastery looks like. Not the absence of emotion, but the ability to sit with emotion without letting it control you. Stillness in the storm. Peace in the middle of chaos. Not because life is easy, but because you've trained the mind. And here's the truth. Training the mind doesn't take magic. It takes discipline. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you're training. Every time you choose breath over panic, you're training. Every time you choose truth over comfort, you're training. No one sees this work, but it changes everything. Because slowly, your identity starts to shift. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of life. You start seeing yourself as a student of it. Everything becomes a lesson. The breakup isn't punishment. It's teaching you non-attachment. The failure isn't proof you're worthless. It's showing you the illusion of ego. The loss isn't cruelty. It's revealing impermanence. This is how suffering becomes a teacher. Buddha didn't run from pain. He sat with it. He watched it, studied it, listened to it. And eventually, it taught him everything. It showed him that trying to hold on to anything, people, feelings, outcomes is like trying to stop the tide with your hands. Everything is changing. And when you finally stop fighting that, you start flowing with it. That flow is where peace lives. Not because life is perfect, but because you're no longer demanding that it be. You become like water. Soft, but strong. Calm, but powerful. Always moving, but never clinging. And in that state, you stop needing life to go your way. You show up fully, but release the outcome. You give your best, but let go of control. You feel deeply, but let go lightly. This is freedom. Not from life, but from the mind's illusion of how life should be. And that freedom is the end of suffering. Not because nothing hurts anymore, but because you're no longer hurt by the hurt. You experience pain and let it pass. You feel disappointment and let it teach you. You encounter fear and walk through it anyway. This is not weakness. It's the highest strength. The strength to stand in truth, to surrender the ego. To meet life without flinching. That's what the Buddha meant by awakening. It's not about escaping life. It's about finally waking up to it. There's something most people never realize about suffering. It's not the pain that stays with us. It's the identity we create from that pain. I was abandoned. I was betrayed. I was rejected. I failed. And then we repeat it like a chant, not out loud, but silently, in our thoughts, in our self-image, until one day, the wound becomes a personality. This is where suffering becomes dangerous. Not just painful, but defining. We start to wear our pain like a name tag. We use it to explain why we don't trust, why we don't try, why we don't let go. And slowly, our suffering becomes a shield that blocks out new love, new growth, new beginnings. Buddha taught, the pain is not your enemy, but your attachment to the pain. That's what keeps you stuck. Ask yourself honestly, are you trying to heal, or are you trying to justify staying wounded? Healing requires something terrifying, letting go of who you were in your suffering, and stepping into someone new, someone freer, lighter, uncertain. That's why most people stay in pain, because healing means giving up the comfort of the known, even if the known is hurting you. But Buddha offered a different way, not a shortcut, not a distraction, but a path of release. And release begins with this truth. You are not your story. You are not your trauma. You are not your mistakes. You are not your fears. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness beneath it all, the space where all of it appears and disappears. But to live in that awareness, you must stop clinging. Let go of the narrative. Let go of what they did. Let go of what didn't happen. Let go of what you should have been. Let it burn. Let it break. Let the ashes of your past fertilize your future. This is not easy. This is not instant. But this is the work. And the Buddha knew we are all capable of it. He never claimed to be divine. He never said, worship me. He said, be a light unto yourself. He showed us the way and asked us to walk it. And walking it means one thing: discipline of the mind. Think of your mind like a fire. If left uncontrolled, it will burn everything: your peace, your relationships, your focus. But if you learn to tend to it, it becomes your warmth, your light, your power. Most people's minds are ruled by craving. Craving for love, craving for power, craving for validation, craving for peace, but only on their terms. And when they don't get it, they suffer. But Buddha taught, when you stop craving, you stop suffering. When you stop needing things to be different, you start to experience life as it is. You stop chasing, you stop begging, you stop performing, and you start living. That's why mindfulness isn't just meditation. It's a revolution. It's noticing your thoughts without following them. It's feeling anger without becoming violent. It's feeling sadness without collapsing. It's watching the waves and remembering you are not the ocean. You are the sky. That's who you've always been. But somewhere along the way, the world made you forget that they told you that success would make you worthy, that love would make you whole, that achievement would make you enough. And when none of that worked, you blamed yourself. But the problem was never you. The problem was the belief that peace lives outside of you. It doesn't. Peace lives in your breath. In your awareness. In your surrender. In the choice to stop fighting what is and start flowing with it. That's the great paradox of suffering. We try so hard to avoid it that we end up creating more of it. But if you stop running, if you stop fighting, and just sit with it, you find something incredible. You find that the pain doesn't kill you. It teaches you. It empties you. It prepares you. And on the other side of that emptiness, there's space. Space for clarity. Space for wisdom. Space for peace. This is not theory. This is not mysticism. This is practice. Breath by breath. Step by step. Thought by thought. This is the path Buddha walked. Not to escape life, but to meet it fully. And suffer less in doing so. And if you walk it too, you will still face loss. Will still feel pain. You will still be human. But you will no longer be ruled by it. You will smile without needing a reason. You will love without needing to possess. You will act without needing applause. You will live without needing to control. And in that way of living, suffering ends. Not because the world becomes perfect, but because your relationship with the world becomes wise. This is the secret. And it's always been inside you. What if the pain you're carrying isn't here to destroy you, but to reveal you? What if suffering was never the enemy, but the invitation? An invitation to go deeper. To see more clearly. To live more freely. This is what the Buddha understood. Sitting under the Bodhi tree, he wasn't given peace, he realized it. Not because the world changed, but because his perception of it did. And that's the shift waiting for you. Not in some faraway temple. Not in another lifetime. But here. Now. In the present. Breath. Because suffering doesn't live in the present. It lives in memory. In fantasy. In resistance. When you become fully present, the suffering begins to melt. Not all at once, but gradually. Like ice under sunlight. You realize you don't need to run anymore. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need to control everyone. You can just be. It sounds simple. But in a world addicted to noise, to chaos, to doing just being is revolutionary. You start to observe your emotions without judgment. You watch your thoughts like clouds drifting by. You feel your fears without obeying them. And in this practice, something miraculous happens. You stop identifying with your pain. You stop feeding the old story. You stop clinging to the illusion that you were ever broken. Because the truth is, you've always been whole. You've just forgotten how to see it. That's what suffering does. It fogs the mirror. And Buddha taught us how to clear it. Not by denying pain. Not by pretending. But by facing it with stillness and wisdom. He called this the middle way. Not indulgence. Not denial, but balance. You don't have to renounce life. You don't have to escape to a mountain. You just have to stop swinging between extremes. Between obsession and apathy. Between craving and resistance. Between running from discomfort and chasing pleasure. Instead, you stand still. You breathe. You see clearly. And you walk the path. Step by step. A path of awareness. A path of intention. A path of compassion. A path of peace. And slowly, the weight begins to lift. You no longer carry the need to be understood by everyone. You no longer need the world to agree with your pain. You no longer expect life to always make sense. Instead, you surrender, not as defeat but as wisdom, because you now know you can't control the waves, but you can learn how to surf them. That's the end of suffering. It's not a finish line. It's a mindset. A new way of being. You still feel. You still fall. You still lose. But you no longer collapse. Rise faster. You let go easier. You suffer less. Because you're no longer afraid of pain. You've met it. You've learned from it. And most importantly, you've stopped adding to it. You've dropped a second arrow. You've let go of what you can't control. You've stopped clinging to the past. You've stopped fearing the future. And you've returned to the only place peace ever lived, the present. This is the path Buddha laid out. Not a religion. Not a dogma, but a simple truth. The more you cling, the more you suffer. The more you let go, the more you heal. So let go. Not because it's easy, but because you're ready. Let go of what they did. Let go of who you thought you had to be. Let go of how you expected life to turn out. Let go of your need to be right, to be praised, to be certain. And what remains is freedom. It's quiet. It's humble. It doesn't shout, but it transforms everything. This is Buddha's secret, not hidden in a book, not reserved for saints, but planted deep within your own awareness. Right now, it's calling you not to run from suffering, but to outgrow it. To rise above it. To become more spacious than your pain. To become still. Even when the world sends single quotes to walk through fire and not burn. Because suffering is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your awakening. And your awakening starts now.